Good morning. Hi. من اسمم سینا هست و با برنامه امروز در خدمت همه شما هستیم. Today is April 3rd and I am joined here today by my very good friend Marjaan that we're going to talk about events of the week and see what happened and just do a very casual conversation and catch up about the news of the week. So please help join me. Welcome Marjaan and talk about different things. Hi Marjaan.
Hello. Hi.
چطوری؟
خوبم، مرسی. شما چطورین؟
خوبم مرسی. خوشحالم میبینمت. You know, ما تصمیممون این بود که we decided که یه casual conversation با آدمایی داشته باشیم که are at your age, they see the world in a different way and به خاطر اینکه I think it affects all of us differently, the news and the events that happened, هممون یه جوری متفاوتی افکت میکنه و تحت تاثیر قرار میده. So I think it would be especially برای بچه‌هایی که توی ایران زندگی میکنن, برای همین اصلا فارسی انگلیسیش کردیم به خاطر اینکه خب you speak Farsi, you speak English, and I think that would help a lot. So we are planning on doing this in not like every week with you, but every once in a while I'll come back and bother you a little about it.
Sounds good.
So do you follow the news of the week of course I don't expect you to follow it like a congressional correspondent, but
I'd say I'm pretty up to date. I mean, I'm like most people my age. I get it from my phone. I don't even really have cable, so if I do get my news, it's from certain apps. For the most part, maybe YouTube, word of mouth, but I keep somewhat on top of things, yeah.
الان popular ترین اپی که برای نیوز آدم استفاده میکنن what is it? میدونی؟
I don't know what most people. I use something called Smart News. It's kind of interesting, and they show articles from the left and they show articles from the right, and you can choose to kind of see where on the scale you'd like to read. So I kind of have mine in the center just so I can have different viewpoints. So it's kind of helpful in that way.
آره من I'm gonna check it out. برای اینکه یکی از important things که گفتی اینه که آدم بتونه هر دو طرف رو گوش کنه. هم کنسرواتیوا هم پروگرسیوا باید بتونن به حرف هم دیگه گوش بکنن. I think خیلی هم میگن که one of the biggest problems right now همه جا, it's not just the US. You can see it in Iran, you can see it in Israel, you can see it everywhere. Sweden, Belgium, یه کسایی دارن people who are running the show it's very scary sometimes. Very I'm glad که you said that. چیزی بود این هفته, did you see anything که نظرتو جلب کرد or got your attention?
Well, there was another, I thought that there was another event at the Capitol. I believe 2 police officers. I think both of them died. I know they got hit by a car. I don't know the details, unfortunately. I don't know if they released details, but I personally don't know them. I know there was a shooting in Orange County. I read about that. Of course, all the vaccination news updates. I've heard that there's another stimulus check that they're thinking about rolling out. So that would be exciting for most Americans. But besides that, I mean, I believe that's mostly it. I know I need to be more on top of the news, but as far as that, that's probably the 2 biggest things is the shooting, just because it's unfortunately, I think America overall has become pretty desensitized to it, but that doesn't mean that they're not happening still. I think there was one this week. I think there was 2 last week. So it's just, yeah, those always stick out of my mind just because they happen so often and nothing is done. nothing changes. So,
you know, in چیزی که گفتی actually خیلی true هست. اونم اینه که اگر آدم واقعا بخواد catch up بکنه با news of the day, you have to spend all your day reading the news. به خاطر اینکه اونقدر flood information is high, اونقدر سریع information میاد که آدم have to constantly چیز بکنه. برای همین I think I'm with you. I think I'm more like you. Like I know few big events that are happening nationally and internationally, and then if I really have the time, I will get into reading about one, maybe or 2 of the issues in detail. ولی این attack Capitol last, I think actually it was yesterday. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yesterday I was getting ready for my Friday class. Yeah, the fake news, you know, somebody rammed a car into the Capitol. And you know, کسایی که نمیدونن خب there's so many levels of barriers around the Capitol. You know, حتی کسایی که analyze میکردن, they were saying که he wasn't even supposed to get to that point. There are checkpoints and stuff before this. Actual اونجایی که ماشین رو کوبید به دیوار, it's different place. So but I mean, they don't release a lot of information back there. I think they're trying to figure out what happened.
Yeah.
I mean, the shooting to Orange County every week دیگه یه sad cartoon دیدم که یه checklist with like, how do we know we are back to normal? Parties, spring break, you know, mass shootings a week.
I know, it's sad but true. And I think too, you know, trying to stay on top of the news, like you were saying, I think whenever there is an event, for example, like the attack on the Capitol again, it just opens a whole can of worms that you start looking into, like, well, why did this happen? And then it's like it opens up so much more and it's so much deeper than just what they kind of present on the news. And that's with everything that's been going on here, I mean, anywhere. But again, with the shootings, you kind of try to look into that and see like, why do we have so many issues with shooting? And then again, you go into the NRA, you go into, it's connected to politics, it's connected to lobbying, it's connected to money. And so it's just, even if you want to learn more about one specific event, it takes more time than I think we realize. So it's hard to keep up. It's hard to keep up.
واقعا you put your finger on it به قول معروف. به خاطر اینکه as you said این اونقدر complicated and این connection هایی که میبینیم، خب خیلی از مردم دنیا let alone خیلی از مردم آمریکا let alone مردم دنیا نمیدونن مثلا لابیست یعنی چی. این یکی از اون چیزاییه که it looks like، یعنی کشورهای دیگه هم کسایی دارن که میره مثلا on behalf of the people lobbies the government که مثلا increase the education funding. They're a firm that may work with professors and whatnot. ولی وقتی که اینقدر پول involve هست دیگه اون public interest از بین رفته. میدونی دیگه لابیست ها حداقل اونایی که میدونن لابی چیه، لابیست کیه، باید بدونن که توی آمریکا اونقدر پول involve شده، اونقدر مانی هست که این دیگه از public interest اومده بیرون شده اینترست یه سری کورپوریشن و یه سری ارگانیزیشن که خیلی پاورفول و خیلی پولدارن. همونطوری که گفتی اونقدر کانکشن ها دیپ هست که اگر بخواد آدم یه ذره‌ش هم بفهمه. I mean that's why there are people who professionally do this like an 8 to 5 job. They get hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to understand these connections. They become an analyst on CNN, for example, whatever. You know?
Yeah.
ولی واقعا خیلی complicated. And then add to that که system, the entire system واقعا باید یه reform درست حسابی احتیاج داره when it comes to that. When it comes to public safety, when it comes to social security, when it comes to justice, you know, الان این هفته جورج فلوید هم هست دیگه trial این پلیسه. You know, وقتی که گوش میکنی مثلا خیلی ها واقعا فکر میکنن آمریکا is an equal society. در حالی که واقعا ایکول نیست، واقعا مساوی نیست. حقی که دارن technically is درسته، ولی اون چی که practice میشه واقعا is different.
Definitely. And I think too, I will only speak for America just because that's the only experience I've had with the news cycle. Things that are a big deal can get buried underneath things that are a bigger deal, of course. I know I did read an article earlier this week about how women's rights are being reduced. I think it's Texas specifically, but I did read about how a state made it illegal again to have an abortion, like basically overturned that. So, but of course, I don't think it kind of gets lost amongst other things, which is not good or bad. It's just there's so much going on. Our news cycle is just constantly running. How are people supposed to keep up with everything that happens? I just know that they've been rolling back on women's reproductive rights, and it's happening. It's easier to, I'm not going to say it's easier to make it happen, but I think people are distracted by other things that are going on, which rightfully so. There's that trial, there's what happened at the Capitol, there's the shooting. How do we divide our attention up into all these things that are going on? I don't know. So,
as a young woman, they really are going around, at least this is my understanding, okay? They are going about it in the name of saving babies, as they call it.
Yes.
But they're trying to, as you said, یعنی کلمه درستش هم اینه لیمیت کردن reproductive right. Right? It's not just about just babies. Right? It's about, a whole bunch of other things. Most importantly, control of your body as a person. So as a young woman, how does that make you feel?
Not great. I know my state in particular, Texas, I've been ashamed of Texas lately. Not even just lately, but they were one of the states that, there's very few abortion clinics. And I think it's just there's so many different situations where that would be warranted. And for whatever reason, the people who are pro-life, they don't take that into account. And really, it's none of their business. It makes me sad just because I feel like America is kind of seen as this place that, like you said, oh, equality, everybody's equal, or, women have the same rights as men. And unfortunately, neither of those are true. So it's just disappointing. I hope eventually we can kind of get back to, not even get back because it was never equal for anybody really. But I hope at some point we can progress to the point that we are at least somewhat on the same level footing, because at this point we're going, again, I don't want to say we're going backwards because it was never equal to begin with, but I feel like there was strides being made and now there are steps being taken back. So it's just unfortunate. It makes me disappointed. So.
I understand what you mean. Obviously, because the nature of the legislation, طبیعت این قانون is sexist به خاطر اینکه فقط half of the population رو affect میکنه. Right? Or at least people who it automatically does not apply to a whole half of the population. And that's the biggest problem. The second biggest problem اینه که it really is try to disempower women, right, to take control away from them. And the third one is almost همه این قانونا are passed by white men who, I don't know what's their understanding of this whole thing, but I don't think it's the same as a woman of color, a minority of either sex or gender. It's really واقعا odd که و خیلی از مردم دنیا بازم اینم از اون چیزایی مثلا تو ایران خیلی نمیدونن واقعا. برای اینکه اونقدر مردم ما تو ایران به خصوص زنای ایرانی تحت یه فشار عجیب غریبی بودن. Like it's a strange world they're living in. The basic things like being able to wear what you want, not having to cover up your hair. You know, اینا has become ideal and, you know, end goal. ولی when you come to this country, you will see واقعا همونطور که گفتی, women are not equal as men اینجا. They're not treated equally. They're not given the same opportunities. They're not get the same results. و واقعا یکی از اون چیزاییه که I hope وقتی که میای بعداً دوباره با هم catch up میکنیم, یکی از چیزایی که I would really like to talk about is what is a young, you're considered a millennial, aren't you?
Yes.
Okay. That's not an insult, is it?
No.
Okay. I don't want to be like, yeah, millennial. I have to check. And perspective یه کسی که millennial هست, and you know, بخاطر اینکه من مثلا when I was young, they really, I'm the last leg of when cell phones didn't exist, and you know, internet, you had to call things and people
dial in.
and it had such a strange noise. Yes. And you know, after that, الان مثلا اولا مثلا یه چیزی خیلی جالب, من یه سری studentام are younger than the war in Afghanistan. I didn't know that.
Wow.
Can you believe it?
No.
You know,
I can't.
it's when some of them told me, I was like, huh? Like,
what do you mean?
Yeah, what do you mean you're younger than the war? ولی آره واقعا it's surreal ها. به خصوص اونایی که مثلا تو ایران هم خب زندگی میکردن, 8 سال جنگ ایران واقعا was insane, man. Like it was just insane. ولی it was 8 years, you know, it ended. ولی این الان is like 20 years that it's gone. And you see people in universities that are younger than the war.
I know.
Like, okay, that puts it to a little bit of a perspective. واقعا این perspective آدمایی مثل تو I think is very important. I think is very important. So I would love to bother you every once in a while, you know, just drag you here in the morning.
It's never a bother.
Let's have a conversation.
Yes.
دمت گرم. مرسی که اومدی. It's always lovely to talk to you and catch up with you and see what's up with the world of young folks. I'm getting to that age.
It's always nice talking to you too. And we actually, I mean, we're very close in age, but it's interesting seeing those different perspectives too, even though we're not that far apart in age. Even though we're pretty similar, but it's, I don't know, coming from a university professor, I don't know, it's a different perspective than I'm used to. Since I'm not going to school, I don't really have that. It's just my own phone that I interact with. So it's always nice hearing different opinions.
I think age difference, I think is not in years anymore. I think that when people talk, they're like, yeah, before the touchscreen phone and after the touchscreen phone, you know, before the dial-up, after the broadband.
So true.
Oh man. من وقتی بچه بودم, like the most advanced thing that I remember was Atari 2600. You know, like, I don't know if you've seen those. It's like a box.
Is that the box with the joystick at the top?
Yeah, the one joystick, and you know. Alon, I look at the world of computers and graphics and games, and I'm like, wow, in مثل movie میمونه. You know, it's not like a game anymore. It's like, it's hard to distinguish between what's real now on the screen and what, of course, you know, when you say dragon, I know what's not real over there. But,
yes.
You know, مثلا یه بعضی از این فیلم‌هایی هست که میسازن, مثلا محمد علی when he's young. They recreate that, and واقعا it's hard to distinguish اگه واقعی یا نه. So این generation که مثلا بعد از حتی, you're right, I think حتی we can in some cases تو من we are very close in the same age مثلا, ولی when it gets younger than even us and it gets to like, you know, really young, like 17, 14, 15, that is when you see this huge gap in technology, how they understand it, how they interact with it, you know.
Definitely.
I use a phone and I think I know stuff, but and then they come into the room and it's just like,
I know. It's a different world than we grew up in.
So I hope که بیشتر بتونیم and we come and talk about this different world. Well, I'm ببینیم, you know, and if there's anything that I would specifically like wanted to know beforehand, I will send you some questions and, you know, things to talk about next time I see you. ولی I think یکی از چیزهای خیلی خوبش اینه که خیلی spontaneous این conversation. You know, we talk about and you know, یه چند تا چیزی گفتی امروز که خیلی مهم بود، مثلا اینکه چقدر connection های hidden و connection های complicated هست که you know واقعا نمیذاره مردم، به خصوص همه که بیزی هستن، لایف دارن، you know، وقتی خونه میان نمیخوان بشینن necessarily dig deep into the dark money in the US financial system and all that stuff, which is completely understandable. Actually یکی از دلایلی که sociologically یکی از دلایلی که society انقدر complicated شده همینه که there are certain mechanisms that work to make it specifically complicated so people, normal people, don't understand it, pay attention to it. You know, it's very interesting how power really works. Very come back anytime you get a chance, come back, let's talk, and I'd love to hear your perspective.
Okay, I would love to do that.
All right. Okay, everybody, I think that's me and Marjan برای امروز March 3rd. I hope
April 3rd.
Oh, pandemic. This is a pandemic mind.
It is.
Again, thank you. This is April 3rd, and we will come back and see you all soon. Have a wonderful day, y'all.
Thank you.